All schools should ban tackling and scrums to make it safer for children. Last year, the 4 senior doctors ruled out a ban, but this latest research says the risk of head injuries and concussion are not adequately reduced by safety equipment. Let's speak now to Professor Eric Anderson, co-trustee of the Sport Collision Injury Collective. That's a group of researchers and academics which aims to reduce the number of injuries in British youth sport. And are you calling for a complete ban or just that's in schools?
In schools. Our call has nothing to do with what's occurring in community levels of rugby play for a number of reasons, including the fact that in community levels of rugby, both parents and children consent to play. But the vast majority of rugby that's played within school systems is played within PE, and our research of about 300 schools randomly selected from around the country, we show that 77% of schools they compel children to play tackle rugby even if against their will. But there's a mixed match here. There's a mixed match in that while 77% of schools are requiring children to play tackle rugby as part of PE, there is no requirement whatsoever for them to have any rugby training or qualification in any capacity, and that includes concussion recognition.
Well,
no requirements at all.
But what is the evidence that they are suffering, that they are getting hurt as a result of that?
This is an excellent question for the Department of Education, which does not require schools to monitor injuries that occur in PE. If a child gets a rubber burn in school or a paper cut, that's logged. But if they get hurt on the PE pitch, as long as they're not hospitalized overnight, there's no requirement to log that injury. So it's impossible to know the number of children that are being hurt in schools PE. Nobody can say. We can only look to the community level of rugby where they probably have better coaching, better preparedness, and kids who want to be there for that injury rate. And of course, that injury rate is very high, particularly when it comes to brain trauma.
Professor, what about the children in schools who want to play rugby with scrummages, with tackling? They love the game. It's a fundamental part of the game as they see it, and they want to play it. Are you saying they can't?
No, I'm saying they have a place to do that, and the place to do that is community levels of rugby, community play in rugby, not within the school systems, who are wholly ill-equipped to deal with this as a mass.
The difficulty with the argument is we need to go to the Department for Education to find out what the levels of injury are, is we're both...
They won't know. They won't know because
then neither do I, and then neither do you. So where is the evidence that actually this would actually save youngsters from harming themselves?
So the evidence we have to go to is from where children are better trained and they have better coaching, and that comes from community levels of rugby play. And if the community levels of rugby play with the very high rates of injury that they show for children there applies anywhere near what it does in PE, then we have a real issue in that we're compelling children against their will to partake in a tackle sport with a very high injury rate. And all we're saying needs to be done to remedy the situation is turn it to touch. Very simple.
Isn't it part of growing up, though, doing things that perhaps you're not keen on, and if you don't like to get involved, you don't get involved, you stand away?
But you can't. You don't have that choice. You're compelled. 77% of children in British schools are compelled to play rugby. So if they don't want to play, they don't have a choice. And if you would take that same argument about shouldn't children be compelled to do this, I would ask you, Simon, do you also compel girls to play tackle rugby?
Is there a difference?
I'm asking you, would you compel girls to play tackle rugby?
I'm not the professor, but I mean, I'm just wondering if
yes,
you've
of course we argue that neither should be compelled, but a lot of people, this argument falls down. They say, well, yes, I think boys should be compelled to play tackle rugby, but not girls. And we would argue, well, isn't that sexist?
We could go on for a long time, Professor. I'm afraid
we could indeed.
Something maybe we already have. But anyway,
please have me back.
We will, Professor Eric Anderson. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Cheers.